Hello, hello, hello. I have a very special guest coming up now. Tim is already in the studio, so I will bring him up very, very quickly when he's ready. And we are starting our conversation. But before I do that, please make sure that you are watching us. Make sure that you are watching the whole day because we have amazing events coming up. We have the new age of marketing panel straight after this conversation. Then we have blockchain panel about the trends in blockchain, and we have a live interview with Swaralim about emotional well-being. We have Richard Thomas about conversational marketing. We have the future of business panel. We have Elia about fundraising, how you strategically can do fundraising. We have Rachel Beck from LinkedIn, if you know her, about social media the right way. And we will have also Nabil Mahmoud about his own purpose, which is about being a nomad futurist, which is something very special. So you have to listen to this interview to see it. And tonight, guys, something very exciting is coming, the networking party. We have a Halloween networking party coming up. It's 10:45 Malaysian time or Singapore time, and it's morning in the US. It's afternoon in Europe and South Africa, so everyone can join in. Please make sure you are there. We will have dancing, games, surprise performance, networking opportunities. So it's kind of like a new approach, and I would love to show it to you and hope you will enjoy it. For those who are watching now, if you are playing the treasure hunt game, please play. The QR code is there. You can win points by adding your comments, adding your aha moments, adding some feedback, even by reaching out some speakers or ask me to reach out through the application, you can gain points. And what you can win is $500 value of creative leadership coaching, resourcefulness, and self-awareness and self-activation coaching, which I'm offering for you for 5 winners. It will be announced on the 31st of December. So you just have to play, collect points, be the first on the leaderboard. And once you did it, then you can win these prizes. And also the Solworxs, the creator of the application, is offering a $200 value of package from their company. So it's exciting new things. There are so many things that we want to give you. The only thing it's missing is you in the picture and your feedbacks and your engagement in the comments. Hi, Jack. Good morning. Hope you are doing right and well. And for everyone watching us, please be active. We will talk about an exciting topic with Tim. Tim, give me a thumbs up if you are ready. Okay, thumbs up. So I will add him to the stream. Here you go. Hi, Tim. How are you today?
Hey, Andrea. How you doing? Doing well.
I'm good. So, Tim, how is everything in Australia? Now everyone is super happy in the park, going out, partying. What's happening with the opening up?
Yeah, well, finally, Melbourne's out of lockdown, so we're all pretty happy here. Myself, I had my second vaccine through the week, so I've been a bit ill, but no, everything's going good and being positive. So that's good stuff.
That's super nice to hear. Hi, Santi Saya. Very nice to see you from Indonesia. Thank you very much for tuning in. Please don't forget to ask questions because we have 2 amazing topics this morning with Tim. And Tim is such an amazing person, all about technicalities, all about I mean, just look at his studio and all the gadgets that he has. I would love to have those things. So Tim, your topic today is podcasting and video creation the right way. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, anything that you could share with the audience so that they can put you in the context and they can understand a little bit more about you.
Yeah, sure thing. So, first of all, I've got a marketing background. So my podcasting and videography sort of stemmed from that base first. So traditionally trained in marketing, and I found that throughout my degree, I was actually creating content for a lot of business owners and noticed some problems that they were having basically creating content at scale. They were hearing things like, I need to be consistent, I need to be seen everywhere, but that ability to create content easily whilst also running a business was a challenge that I really loved and wanted to solve. But then also coming at it from not being a videographer to start with, but a marketer, understanding, well, what actually gets people's attention first, and then how can you use that attention to get a desired result on the back end. So for me, when it came to creating content, it was like, well, how can you use your time best, but also what's the most effective way to do things at scale, whilst you're also running a business at the same time, and maybe don't have the access to, as you were saying at the start, all the gear and the equipment and the rabbit hole that comes with all of that too.
I just love your work and what you do, and you are so. The first thing that got me when we first had a talk is your passion about your work and how you do it, and then it's kind of like very nice to see. I love when people from the data, background, data analysts, and then come the developers. Then I have you from this marketing podcasting side who is so passionate about these things that are a bit far from me about emotion. I'm more emotional, more people person. And it's such nice thing to see that every field in our lives, every profession can be done passionately, right? It doesn't matter whether it's just creating Excel files and having fun with the formulas, or having all these gadgets and putting something together in the background and working in a studio and editing videos. That I have to say, it's not an easy work. I did it myself. I just would like to outsource it as soon as possible when my business will run better. So Tim, how do you manage, before we just jump into this topic, how do you manage your balance? How do you manage this? I guess in this last few years, you got a lot of people coming to you. Everyone is switching to digital. So how do you manage your balance, your life balance, or work-life integration? Or are you all the time in the studio, or do you have some free time?
Yeah, actually, I might go a little bit of a different angle here. Sometimes I don't do it well at all, and it's actually a really hard thing to get right, especially with editing projects, as you mentioned there. They can a lot of the times the filming is the easy part, and the editing takes a long time. So juggling that is still something I need to get better at. Some of the things that I have been doing in terms of balance is understanding that grinding at a computer for 2 or 3 hours versus taking 4 hours, but there's an hour break in between is more effective. That can be very challenging to do, though, when you've got deadlines and people asking, okay, how long will this take? How long will that take? And it's a constant juggle. So one of the things that I'm consistently learning is the need for communication with people, telling them and updating people, and still getting better at that. It's just really interesting to understand that balance and making sure you're getting things right, because I know it can be a tough thing. So I guess to summarize that, it's interesting what happens if you try and go full out versus going full out for a short amount of time, but then actually giving yourself space to step away. There was a project this week where I just couldn't make headway into it for an hour. But then, I took some time off and came back to it, and it was just, free flowing again. And they probably talked about it across this whole summit, getting into your flow state. It's really, really important to do that, especially when it comes to something like video editing, where certain tasks can be monotonous. But yeah, that would be sort of my answer to that. Hopefully that makes sense. Yeah.
Of course, it makes sense, and I love your honesty, because to be honest, on my side, I mean, I'm not a specialist. I just got to learn it by doing it, right? But I feel that when I'm in this inspiration phase, I got very inspired. I am in this flow, as you mentioned. It's super easy to do a nice video. But when you are a little bit tired, or you are not in this phase, and you sit down and you are just pushing yourself to create something, and then you end up with something that you don't even like, after like 2-3 hours of editing it, I'm like kind of like, okay, give me a break. So yeah, I can understand your viewpoint here.
yeah, and it's really interesting as well that when you take that, and then you might show it to someone else, and they say, oh, could you do this, can you do this, can you do this? And you need to allow yourself time and space for those changes as well. Because it's one of those things that really make a big difference, for sure.
And then we haven't talked about podcasting. I'm in a Hungarian podcasting group, and we are sharing the rights of who is editing, the podcast. And I did the editing. Honestly, it was 6 hours. We had like 2.5 hours of conversation, and I was like so meticulous. I went into the audio, and I wanted to, every little upcoming very bad song, the audio, or someone was like just humming. At the end of the process, I was already knowing how and when and who is taking breath, because they could recognize the breath by the audio. I don't know if people who are listening understand this, but
I've seen jokes in podcasting threads where people go, I can tell what an looks like just by the sound wave, just because they're that pedantic, and to take it out. It's interesting. I have a bit of a different approach to that. I think you want to get the fundamentals right with your audio, so you want to make sure that if there's some hissing in the background, or if there's annoying sound, you want to get rid of that. You want to make sure the tone is kind of overall around, but sometimes you can, as you say, go a little bit too far when you're trying to match every little line. And now an audio that's 45 minutes is taking you 2 hours to edit. Sometimes there's diminishing returns on those things, but yeah, it's important these are the things people don't understand until you actually get a file and you edit it. The difference between those little things and making sure they're right versus not, and they make a huge difference in the overall of your podcast. When people are listening to it, it always comes back to the experience of the listener, and our ears are really attuned to things that are off. Even if someone doesn't have a understanding of why it doesn't sound bad, they'll just know, okay, something's off. And people are so sensitive that if it's not up to scratch, they'll find another podcast to listen to.
I love it. It's just something that I would suggest everyone to try it once, at least. Just do a little bit of editing and see. And then later on, I believe you will appreciate more the people who are doing this work for you, because it's really, really a lot of work, I have to say. So I would really be happy to pay someone to do that. If your entrepreneurship, or if your company can afford it, and it's just don't waste time with it, I would suggest, because it's really a long process, and you have to be really patient, and there are so many specifics that we will talk about today that only the experts know. And even if you think, okay, you did something okay and it's nice, but someone who has done it 100 times will be always better than you who just try it for once. So Tim, let's get into the details. I always love to set the contest straight. So let's start with the podcasting first, and maybe we can just connect it with the video creation, because you are the repurpose guy, so you love to repurpose content. So what is a podcast? Why is it good to open a podcast? Why is it so popular today?
Yeah, great question. So a podcast is audio content at its simplest form. If you have a microphone, you can have a conversation, you can put that up on Spotify and iTunes. Congratulations, you've got a podcast. The benefits of it is, for me, the biggest thing that I see is the ability to create content at scale. It's so easy to have a conversation like what you and I are having right now and then repurpose it in many different ways, where you're sharing tips on this show, I'm sharing tips on this show that can go in blog format, that can go in picture format, that can go in video format, long form, short form, over TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, all of these places. That's the main benefit. The benefit for me of having a podcast isn't necessarily that 45-minute long conversation. It's about all the stuff that you can get from it. That's the benefit of having one. Why they're so popular is it's a medium where people can use their time twice. They can put on this podcast when they're going for a walk. They can put this podcast on whilst they're washing the dishes. They can have it playing on YouTube in the background whilst they're doing something else. They can be watching it in their downtime because they would prefer to listen to a topic that they're interested in, and that's the YouTube video that they watch. It's so versatile in what you can do with the conversation. That's sort of why, one, they're popular at the moment, and why people are listening to and creating podcasts more now than sort of 5 or 10 years ago.
Beautiful. And we touched the topic about the length of the podcast. You said around 45 minutes. And I remember at the workshop, you were telling us a little bit about this more, like what are the different timings for the different setups of the interviews. Can you repeat that so that the audience can get to know this approach?
Yeah, sure thing. So I believe like a podcast can never be too long, only too boring. Essentially, if you think about it, I can have a conversation that lasts for 45 minutes to an hour, but it feels like 10 minutes because it's so interesting. Vice versa, I can have a 10, 15-minute conversation that's boring and drags on that can feel like 45 minutes to an hour. So a lot of the times when people say, how long should my podcast be? Just judge it by how interesting the topic is. So I wouldn't want to limit my podcast to 45 minutes because the guest might say something at minute 60 where that would be the most important part of the episode. And then remember, if you're going to be repurposing this stuff on different channels, that 2-minute segment that they've said at minute 60, if you cut it off at 45 minutes, then you're not going to get that bit of content. That being said, I have if you're looking for really popular people to come onto your podcast, I've seen a theory by someone. So Gary Vaynerchuk, which kind of makes a lot of sense. If you're looking for a big person to come on your show, pitch 5 minutes or 10 minutes at them because they don't have a lot of time. But if you say, hey, I've got a podcast that's 5 minutes long, can you come on? You might think, 5 minutes, what can I actually get done in that time? Well, if you plan out some really good questions and you do your research, you can actually get a good conversation going for 5 minutes. So yeah, I guess the firm answer there is it can't be too long, only too boring. And then if you think about the timing, sometimes a short episode can work in your favor as well. But for me, I've found the episodes that have been sort of the most successful have been the ones that are in the 45-minute to an hour range, just because that gives you the ability to have a really good conversation that can get you a lot of content.
I think I love the way how you said that it cannot be too long, just too boring. I really love this concept because I have the feeling too when I listen to a good podcast, it's just like it's keeping me there. Like you have the feeling that, okay, you can just go on and talk to me because I love the conversation. It's exciting. And from this manner, I believe that's also important, how the people speak or how they are expressing themselves, whether they are going low tone or high tone or all these. Can you give a few tips about how to be interesting for a longer period, or about the style? Is there something specific?
Yeah, you actually just did it right there. It all comes down, if you're doing an interview, it comes down to the questions and the quality of the questions, but also asking for specifics is something that's really, really important. I can talk to someone and they can be very broad on the answer, but if I ask for a specific example, like you said, how long should this be, or something like that, the specifics, the interesting stuff is actually in the details. So it's not the first question where you might start the conversation. It's actually through your listening in that second question where it can be interesting, and that can start the conversation. So yeah, asking for specifics like what you just did is really important in an interview, and then actually listening to what the person is saying, so you can ask a question that's derived from what they're saying. That's what keeps the conversation interesting for me, and getting practical bits of information, not just the surface level fluff stuff. That's kind of the key that I've found to what makes interesting episodes.
And we haven't talked about the way how the podcast is distributed and how the distribution should look like. Like, there are many platforms to use. You have specific for iPhones. You have all the different Android stuff. So what are the different platforms? What is now trending? What is good to use? And then the next step is how you make it like appealing, like with a good image, with a good write up, with a title. Like, it's so hard to get a good title because everyone is there. Even the name of the podcast is so hard to choose. So what are your tips? Platforms, and then the look and the feel, and how you just create attention around your podcast.
Yeah, sure thing. So let's talk about platforms first. There's two things that I've used to record the episodes first. So Zoom is a great place to start if you're just looking to start. If you can set up a Zoom link, if you can send that Zoom link to someone, and if you can hit the record button on that, you've got a podcast essentially. Um, what I've recently found is a platform called Riverside. Riverside's fantastic because it's made specifically for podcast and video creation over the internet. Specifically, the function lets you record from the local source, which means that it's recorded at the highest quality. So both the sound and the video are going to be spot on, versus Zoom, where it records over the cloud, which means it needs to compress everything, which means the image quality and stuff is a little bit lower. That being said, it's a paid platform. So if you're looking to just get started, Zoom is the one. But then if you're looking for more quality, those are the two platforms that I'd sort of suggest looking at. When it comes to distribution, again, there's two players that I've used and can recommend. The first one is Anchor. Anchor is fantastic because it's free. It's owned by Spotify. And there's just some really good moves that Spotify are doing in the podcasting space. That's probably your safest bet to go with starting. There are some limitations with it though, in terms of analytics, in terms of other certain specifications like that. The other platform to use is Libsyn. Libsyn is sort of the Rolls Royce of hosting. It is a paid platform, but with that comes a lot better servers, a lot better data analytics, a lot better that kind of stuff. So those are the two platforms, and both of them will let you distribute your podcast to iTunes, Spotify, and all of the places that it's available. So that's what I do in terms of the actual distribution. When it comes to the look of your podcast, the cover art is a really essential part. People say don't judge a book by its cover, but people definitely judge the podcast by the cover. You've got a 3000 by 3000 pixel square that you can use to grab attention, to really invoke what your podcast is about, and to give people that, will I listen or will I not? So many people don't put the time and effort into their cover, and it really hurts them on the back end, because it just doesn't look like something that is appealing. So I would look into hiring a good graphic designer that also has an understanding of podcasting as well to get that done, and that's important. Then obviously, if you're looking at your podcast cover, you're wanting to know about your name. The name of the podcast is also another really crucial thing. For me, you want it to do a couple of things. You want it to be attention grabbing. You want it to tell us a little bit about the show, and you want it to be different than everybody else's. So I think if you were to search in iTunes right now for a podcast name called Real Talk, people think that's a great name because, I'm having real conversations. It's Real Talk. There's about 10 other podcasts that are called Real Talk. So you don't want to be at a party or something and people go, oh, like, I've seen your podcast, I've seen you putting up stuff, like what's the name of it? And then you say Real Talk, and all of a sudden you got to say, oh, but it's the one that's 5 things down and it's purple, and it's not the one with that other, like, you want a name that's different than what everyone else is using. And even if you can, something that's searchable, something that's in a niche is also really important, because you got to understand the behavior of people when they're looking for a show. What are they typing? What are they searching for? So all those are things that help grab attention, but also are important to think when you're designing.
And about the copyright, I mean the write-up of the show, like the short introduction, or even the first thing that is making the attention. Most people put a little intro in front of the first podcast. So what should be in there? How could you give some tips about it, what it has to be there?
Yeah. Hey, sorry, I have to. I've got my partner's keys. She needs to go to the shops. Can I just?
It's okay. It's okay. Yeah. It's a live show, so people know it's real. So until Tim is coming back, please just check on the QR code above. We will continue our conversation after the guest is going away. I think he's ready. Please check on the QR code, play with us, send some feedbacks, send some aha moments with the help of the application, and win those beautiful, amazing stuffs that we are preparing for you, $500 each. So it's kind of like an investment from me to you, so that I make sure that you are really getting the most out of this summit, and you are engaging with the posts, you are understanding them, you are digesting them, and we keep the content open on demand until the 31st of December, and you can still play with the QR code, and you can win the prize. And most importantly, you can get to know the speakers, you can connect with them, plus you can learn so many things from the more than 300 live sessions. So I'm giving Tim back the stage. All right, here we go. So let's continue, Tim. We were at the copyright, we were at the little intro and the content of the text that you put into your introduction.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for that. So yeah, all of those are 3 very important aspects. The content that you look at with the cover, the name, and the actual title that you use. All 3 aspects that go together when looking to start.
Is there any specific like hashtags or anything that you use in the description, or is it important to mention your guest, or you put some keywords, or is it counting whether you use keywords in these little descriptions?
Look, I think keywords are always really important when it comes to what people are searching for. So the more specific you can be in just your description with those type of words, don't just say, if you're doing an email marketing podcast, be specific on email marketing, for example. Those are all things that I would consider. Your description is another really good opportunity for you to really tell people what the show is about. So if your cover, the name of your show, you might have 2 or 3 words and then a little bit of a tagline. Your description is your ability to really expand on that, but also it gives people that a little bit more push of, oh yeah, I will listen to this show. You got to always think, what are people looking for when they're looking for something new? Well, they want an explanation. They want to be excited. They want to make sure when they click on this episode that they're not going to be disappointed with the choice that they've made. So all of those things are something you need to think about. Yeah.
Okay, so we have what is a podcast? We know the platforms, we know how to do it, and we already have some kind of description. We have the title up, we have the image up, and now comes to the content and the guests. Like, how do you choose guests? Is it a strategic decision? Is it because it's connected to your business, or is it something else? What's your approach of your invitation to the guests that are participating in your shows?
Yeah,
or do you have to have guests at all?
Well, you don't need to have guests. You can definitely do a solo show, and some of those have been some of the successful ones that I've helped produce. When it comes to that, it's really thinking about what people want to hear. What are the struggles that people are going through? What are the things that they want? What are the desires? What are the things that you can actually tell them that you're an expert in? When it comes to guests, a lot of people get they're like, oh, I don't know anyone in my network. Well, it's funny. You actually do. You actually do. It's one of those things where you can start with, one or two people that you really respect in the industry that you're talking about. And then from there you go, okay, well, I've talked about this topic. Hey, do you know someone that knows about this? And they'll introduce you to that person and that person. All of a sudden, you've got about 10 episodes under your belt. And then after your podcast is sort of established, that's when you can reach out to bigger people, because they want to see, okay, well, this is a show that's been around, it's been consistent, it's all of that kind of stuff. So that's important. When it comes to finding guests, I try and think about a few things in terms of, is this someone that I've had on, like, has their topic been covered before on my show? If it has, then I might not have that guest on. If it's a different topic, if it's interesting, that's great. I use like some good platforms. There's a good platform called Matchmaker FM. So that basically is a good platform for putting together guests and hosts in one place. So I found that's a good place to find guests if you're just starting from scratch and you want to reach out to some people. But what you'll quickly find is there's actually more guests than there are podcasts. A lot of people want to be on podcasts. Not so many people have the podcast. So it's, once you've done about 10 or 15 episodes, it becomes really easy to find a guest. What is harder is to find the quality guests. So it's really about doing your research and your background knowledge. I've made that mistake in the past by having too many people on the show, and then I get too much of a backlog, and all of a sudden I've got so much editing to do that it's just all too overwhelming. So sometimes being a little bit more restrictive in terms of that is funny. Is probably what you want. It's really funny because when you start, you think, okay, it's going to be so hard to get guests, but then you get to a point where you're almost overwhelmed, and you'll find it really easy to find guests. It's actually the easiest part to the podcasting process I've found.
I think we have to share here some mistakes and failures. I love to share them. Like, if you want, like I did this mistake. I remember on LinkedIn, I am so, how you say that? I'm so passionate about my projects. I want to build this digital ecosystem. Oh, let's talk to Oprah. And I was writing, like, literally, I was writing to Oprah, to Gary Vee, to everyone.
Yeah, that's LinkedIn, fantastic.
Like, direct messages, but no one replies. But the thing is, like, how do you approach this strategically? Do you go to gatekeepers? Do you research first who to start first? I just did the bold step, and really they are not reading their messages anymore. So I got to understand there is someone doing that for them. But yeah, what are the things that you did, or how did you learn from them?
Yeah, and that's actually not a bad. It's not a bad. I wouldn't say that was a mistake. So many people don't reach out. They just don't reach out because they think, oh, that's impossible. But you never know. Like, you might have sent the right message at the right time and then got that guest on the show. So I wouldn't say that's a bad thing. The more popular guests that I've had, if I think about how that process worked, is I actually put a little bit of time into actually understanding why they would come on the show. And if you're asking someone to spend 30 to 45 minutes of their time with you, especially if it's a bigger person, you know, the opportunity cost there for them, you got to understand that. So how much effort have you put into engaging with their content? Or, you know, have you just watched them from afar for 2 years and you're like, I know they're a big audience, so I know if I get them on, like, it's just you all the time, rather than like, what are you actually going to provide them? That's where I think, and I haven't tried that technique personally, but it makes a lot of sense to, if you're going to a bigger guest, say, you know, 10 my show's 10 minutes, like, can you come on for 10 minutes, and then, like, say specifically why. Like, are they talking about a particular topic at the moment? I know, you know, Gary V, again, he's one of those persons, but at the moment he's talking a lot about NFTs. So are you a podcast that's talking about NFTs? Well, then your likelihood of having him on the show for 5 minutes is probably higher at the moment, because that's a topic that he's talking about. One of the bigger guests that I've had on my show, Jim Penman, I noticed that he was doing a lot of personal branding stuff through his social media. He was trying to, you know, he's built a really big business. So I went through the Instagram stuff. I started engaging with it authentically because I actually liked the content. So then when I, you know, asked, hey, you know, come on, would you like to come on the show? I knew that was a good fit. That was something that they were looking to do, was getting him on podcasts. So sometimes it's being a little bit strategic in that sense. Is probably the better tactic to take. Like, what can you provide that person if they're going to spend 10 minutes, 15 minutes? Is your podcast in line with what they're trying to achieve at the moment? Yeah.
Love the tips. I think it was such a wonderful 40 minutes. It's just flying so fast. We went through basically how to set up a podcast. We gave a lot of tips about the basics. We also gave some extra tips how to get some guests, and even the style and everything. Thank you very much, Tim. It was great and valuable session. I hope whoever is watching this on replay or right now, you learned a lot from it. And please don't be afraid to reach out to Tim. I know that he will get back to you. Just write that you were meeting him at the GES 2021, and he will know that you were watching this interview. You have his name here, but otherwise, Tim, what are the other platforms when people can find you? Just share a little bit about your work, what you do.
Yeah, sure thing. LinkedIn's actually the best place. So if you send me a direct message on there with a question, that would be great. If you want to learn more about podcasting specifically, I've got a Facebook group called How to Start a Podcast. So if you type in on Facebook How to Start a Podcast, there's about 400 plus members in there. That group I'm in. I run that group, so you can find out more. I share tips in there fairly regularly. So that would be a good place to go if you're looking to start a show.
Love it. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. I hope you will have a beautiful weekend with your family, and make sure you are not all the time in your studio.
Yeah, I'll try.
And thank you very much for Jack, Simfong, and also for, let me see, Santi, for tuning in and watching us and giving us the comments. I'm really, really happy to have you. And Simfong is saying he already sent you a connection request on LinkedIn, so you will have already him. Yeah. Thank you very much, team. It's a pleasure to have you, and have an amazing, successful upcoming end of the year.
Great, thank you, Andrea. And yeah, like I said last time when I ran my workshop, I just want to thank you for putting this event on. It's amazing what you've done, coordinating so many people, and I know there's a lot of time and effort that's gone into this. So yeah, I really do appreciate you setting this up, and looking forward to keeping in touch and talking to you soon.
Yeah, we see each other in that group. I'm joining in more and more after the end of the summit, so we will see each other very often. Maybe I can even visit Australia. Who knows?
Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah.
Thank you, team. Have a beautiful day. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
See
Bye.
you very soon. Bye bye. And before I'm closing the stream, I just want to say that we are heading to a panel discussion, so you don't have to go anywhere. You can stay on this YouTube channel, and we will have our first panel discussion, which is super exciting today. I have to say that I love today's discussions. The first is about new age marketing, and we have people from the US, we have Malaysia, and we have also some people who are really the gems of their field, and they are really knowing a lot about the new trends coming up, even about AI, and even how this whole thing will work in the future. So please make sure you tuning in, you stay on this YouTube channel and share it with your friends. We are coming after I change the studio and I bring all my guests up. So see you very, very soon. In a few minutes, we are starting. Let me prepare. You have a little time for your coffee, a little time for a tea, and then in 15 minutes, we are starting our new age marketing panel discussion. See you guys. Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Santi. Yes, I'm preparing for the weekend. It's kind of like a party t-shirt already, Jack. All right. Bye, Simfong. Bye, everyone.